Introduction. This guidance is intended to provide only an overview of the safety hazards that you may encounter when working on ships and other vessels. You should be aware of these hazards and avoid dangerous situations. You should not enter any area of the vessels that is not open to the general public without specific permission and, if necessary, supervision. If a recognized danger or hazard is avoidable, you should not proceed without adequate training, guidance, and where necessary, that the appropriate permission from the masters or owner of the vessel. You should always refer to your national legislation and guidance. Description of the work area. Preliminary recommendations. The safety officer must be informed of any intended job that is not part of those scheduled. He will approve the report containing the formalities of execution and the precaution taken from that job. All the ships in terms of environment of the job are divided in two sections. Engine section. Those personnel perform tasks and duties common to each type of ship. Deck section. Those personnel perform marine tasks and common to all ships and specific type of cargo to be handled. Service of prevention and protection of the workers. The DPA will also act as the company security officer, whilst the chief officer will be on board safety officer. In case of accidents, in addition to the procedures of the investigation and of intervention already set out in the manual, the master or the safety officer will note down the event into the record of the incident. Permit system. As some activities on board may be particularly dangerous to personnel unless adequate precautions are taken and maintained. For carrying out these activities, the company has established a particular system based on permits given after the evaluation of risk and the adoption of safety measures. The shipboard personnel must obtain from the chief officer and chief engineer, depending on the personnel and the area of job, involve a proper written authorization or permit to work. Enclosed permit system. The permit must be issued every time a person is required to enter an enclosed space where his life could be at risk, maybe in high or low, for the only reason of the classifying the risk level connected to the internal atmosphere of the closed compartment entered. This is to be considered as a high-risk space entry. These further provisions are also to be considered. For no reason, an enclosed space considered risk must be entered without the presence of the responsible officer and when requested of the linked person. Number 2. No one must enter a high-risk area to attempt rescuing a person in distress without having first adopted personnel safety precautions. This is to avoid risking his own life and to avoid compromising the position of those requiring help. And number 3, difficulties and danger arising while stationing in a closed space. This area must be immediately evacuated.
In the case of work permits, it must be issued whenever one of the following activities is being carried out. First, entry into closed spaces. Second, work aloft, overboard or on stage or exposed areas. Third, hot work, wherein it involves electric or flame welding. Fourth, work on the electric circuit. And lastly, underwater works and inspections. For divers underwater inspections, diver services must always be authorized by the owner or by the company unless an emergency situation exists where the delay involved would be unacceptable. Before starting underwater repairs and inspections, a specific work permit must be issued. The permit is additional to safety assistance or precaution required by the divers and must be signed for acknowledgement by all personnel involved. For accidents analysis, the company, in the intent of raising the sense of prudence of auto protection of his crew, foresees a procedure of analysis for the cases of accident that could occur. Different procedures will be followed according to the degree of activity of accident or the evident danger of accident. Therefore, reference is made in these 7 cases. First is the near miss, where it is an unplanned event that has the potential to cause but does not actually result in human injury, environmental or equipment damage, or an interruption to normal operation. Second, light accident, when the injury or the resulting disadvantage is of light entity and involves only one person. Third, collective light accident, when the injury or the resulting disadvantage is of light entity but involves more than one person. Fourth, middle accident, when the accident requires applying to medical cares but doesn't implicate complications or permanent lesions to the injured. Fifth, collective middle accident like to the point 4 but involving more than one person. Serious accident, the sixth one, when involved permanent lesions to the injured or also the death. Seventh, collective serious accident like to the point 6 but involving more than one person.
So hours of rest of crew members. So in accordance with Part 2, Article 5 of the ILO Convention, the seafarer's minimum hours of work shall not be less than 10 hours in any 24 period and 77 hours in any 7-day period. So hours of rest may be divided into more than 2 periods, so one of which shall not be at least 6 hours in length, and the interval between consecutive periods of rest shall not exceed 14 hours. Drills prescribed by the national laws and regulation and by international instrument shall not be conducted in a manner that minimizes the disturbance of rest periods and does not induce fatigue. Next is medical fitness. A thorough medical examination is required to every prior joining a ship to ascertain medical fitness and for the purpose of keeping illness claim to minimum. So it is the responsibility of the master or the first aid and medical care trained delegated officer to arrange that medicines are always available on board. Medicines are given to crew members as required. So the International Medical Guide for Ships or equivalent publication is available on board, where the master may get all useful information and advice concerning illness, injuries, food poisoning, and etc. So next is company drug and alcohol policy. The company is committed to promoting a safe, healthy, and productive working environment for all employees. The company recognizes that drug and alcohol abuse may impair the personal ability to perform their duties. So this is particularly valid for those employees whose tasks entail safety and health risk for themselves and others. The shipboard personnel, for the evident reason that any error or accident they may cause, loss of lives, fires, and environment pollution, is to be considered particularly exposed to these dangers.
Commitment of the company. Commitment is important. It allows an organization to meet its goals and sticks to its vision. It is a crucial part in an organization, such as being on board ships, because anything can be dangerous without having a focused and determined work phase. So this is for the employees whose tasks entail safety and health risk for themselves and others. Also, from shipboard personnel, for the evident reason that any error or accident they make may cause loss of lives, fire and environment pollutions. It is to be considered particularly exposed to these dangers. Controls on board. Every month, the master is authorized with supervision from at least one crew to perform alcohol and drug tests at spot of the 25% of the crew. Also, the master must be submitted to alcohol test. In this case, the company, through their personnel or by external official laboratory, will perform the test, such as DPAs, superintendent, auditors, 2 officers, or etc. Why is it done? Well, simply it's for the security measurements on board to avoid drugs being put on board when vessels are in port or at anchor. What are being done to prevent this from happening? So first is security control at the gangway and on deck. Second, control that unauthorized person, boats and or divers do not approach the ship. Lastly, the master of the company may decide to conduct unannounced search for drug and alcohol. Also, During post-incidents, crew members should be tested with drug or alcohol test kits or gadgets. Lastly is procedures and instructions. In order to ensure that the crew members is given clear and precise instructions, it becomes necessary to align instructions and procedures with standards. Standards-based instructions help guide the planning, implementation, and assessment of crew members. To do this, three things are needed. First is the company's instructions. This provides every managed ship with a publication, general information on the effect of drug use and alcohol abuse, general guidance on alcohol consumption, health, and impairment. Second is posters. In particular, all personnel on duty should have observed a period of abstinence from alcohol consumption before watchkeeping of at least 1 hour for each alcohol units absorbed. And lastly is the company controls. The company shall verify that D&A policy is correctly implemented. Hygiene on board ships, which is found in section 7.7.8. The master or the captain shall ensure that crew accommodation, lavatories, galley spaces, refrigerators, rooms, dry store rooms are maintained clean and hygienic. This is to increase not only the standard and looks of the said areas, but also to improve and helps control the spread of infections that could possibly harm any crew members. Also, weekly inspections of such spaces are to be carried out by the chief officer in cooperation with the first engineer, able cook, and one deck or engine rating. It is to ensure that the most vulnerable areas where crew members work are well maintained and clean. One of the most important areas that should be the most clean and hygienic is the galley, as it is where all crew members, including the captain, eats. Lastly, if it happens crew members see infiltrations on such areas, they should report it and shall be filled in appropriate files.